Okay, based off what there has been happening with the Taliban, which is this is a religion, which implies that the women don't actually have basic rights, like in comparison to the rest of the world. For example, they cannot speak in public, they cannot be independent, financially independent, study. They cannot even have windows. Okay, but I'm going to talk about religion in general. This is specifically what made me want to talk about this, but it's not that it will just grab this example. It will grab like the whole field of religion, and I will examine it. I'm not a religious person, I'm a really scientific person. So I will talk about logic and belief and why I think logic is better and why I think belief is not good. You can either agree or disagree, and it's fine. You can leave the comments down below. It's fine. I know that a lot of people will disagree. But here is what I think. Let's start with what I think logic is and what is actually acceptable that logic is. Logic is a method of thinking that involves trying to falsify arguments and not only prove arguments. That is a really big difference between a belief and logic. A belief is based on assumptions, and that they usually cannot be proven, and they serve as an explanation for things that are not explained by science. Why do I think that is a problem? Well, I think that is a problem because when people think that the explanation for a question is a certain one based on assumptions and not logic, they will stop seeking the truth. So, beliefs make people stop seeking the truth because to seek out the truth, you have to question your beliefs, which is something that is inherently not connected with religion, right? So, I think that as an effect makes society evolve less intellectually. Because if you're certain about anything, you're not going to question that specific thing, and you're not going to see it from a bunch of different perspectives. You're not going to try to maybe inform yourself, looking for scientific evidence that might disprove or prove your thoughts. You might not try to find another way of explaining things that kills scientific discovery, that kills intelligent thinking. That when we talk about logic, intelligence is based on logic. Beliefs are not based on logic. So, logic per se, like the more logic you are, the smarter you are in that specific area. So, what makes me think this? It's not only about what I logically have been thinking. I'm going to also share my experience with having beliefs, which I had when I was a teenager. I had beliefs when I was a teenager, and now I don't. first, I'm going to say that I know that it is hard to think without beliefs. It is a long process to like leave beliefs aside. And some people don't even fathom how that can be a thing, like literally having no beliefs. It is interesting. Some people say like, but if you don't have beliefs, that's a belief. No, it's not a belief. It's just accepting uncertainty. That's the opposite of a belief. Accepting uncertainty and not trying to like fill up the void that science has not filled up yet, because science has not explained everything. I'm not trying to fill that void with stories. I'm okay with not knowing, and I'm even more okay with searching for the answers. Searching for something that can be proven scientifically. That's super interesting. Scientific method is made for us to be able to reach knowledge in a more effective way, in a more objective way, and in a more infallible way, which makes scientific knowledge a lot more usable for society. And also the scientific way of thinking, which is doubting things, trying to falsify our thoughts, our proofs, our hypotheses, not only trying to prove them, but also trying to falsify them. What I mean with falsifying them, I mean trying to find flaws in the logic that, like, you can prove that that is wrong. You know, what I think religion does to people is it makes them not search for smarter answers, because it's harder. It requires accepting uncertainty. It requires being uncomfortable emotionally. I will accept that uncertainty sometimes feels threatening, because we don't know what to do when we're not certain, and that makes us feel uncomfortable, in danger, because we don't know what we're doing. We feel in less control of our lives. But there is a way of being more in control without having to resort to beliefs, which is finding answers that are more logical, and that they will give you better results in life in the long run, because you will make smarter decisions, because these decisions will be more based on logic than on religion. Think about literally all history, how much we have evolved in the terms of logic, and how much has religion evolved in terms of logic. We have a lot more information to make better decisions that lead us to a better life. That's why scientific people tend to invent things that are really good, because they question things and they search for answers, like Darwin did with the theory of evolution, or like Einstein did. He questioned things, so he searched for a more logical way of understanding the world. When you say something cannot be understood, when you think that something cannot be understood, you stop searching for the answer, so you will never find the answer, and that will make you stunted intellectually. If I think that I may find another way of explaining things that is provable, like scientifically provable, I maybe will make it. I will reach my goal, and that is really important. That is a really important thing of having doubts and accepting uncertainty. Another thing that I think about religion is that it is based on fear. Religion is based on assumptions that have to exist in someone's mind for them not to be fearful. It's not a rational thing. It's a coping mechanism, which in the long run makes them less smart, which makes them have more problems in life because they're not searching for logical solutions. Well, I base my way of thinking in statistics, for example, and questioning myself. Those are the two things that are the most important for me. I think, for example, okay, this is my experience in this situation. Does this equate to everyone else's experiences? No, it doesn't. Okay. What does it say about the world? Well, it objectively says that I have experienced this. How much of this experience is subjective? And what is something that isn't subjective? Okay, why is this subjective and why isn't it? How can I categorize my experiences, my feelings, my thoughts? Well, with logic. For example, I had a bad interaction which made me feel sad with someone. So I think, okay, what about this made me feel sad? And I realize, can it be an insecurity? Can it be that person is not empathic enough, so they are not taking my feelings into account, and they are only taking their feelings instead of taking into account both parts? Is it that I'm not expressing what I need and how I'm feeling, and I'm expecting the other person to read my mind? Is it that this person really kind of knows how I feel but don't care? That is what questioning my subjective experience looks like from a perspective of being inside of my mind. This is just a simple example about like day-to-day life. Okay, what if, for example, people who believe in things, when they saw a light somewhere, maybe that was just, I don't know, a satellite or whatever, but they assume it's a religious experience instead of thinking, well, it may be, but what if it is blah 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 blah? Is this really the only possible explanation for this? Can't I search for different possible explanations? Thinking, like, taking into account that literally schizophrenia exists. Isn't that a possibility too, that I'm schizophrenic? Why is that never something that I hear from here from like people who are religious? Why? I do hear that from people who are not religious, right? And I'm not just talking about religion. Let's change religion for belief havers, okay? Belief havers, people who have beliefs. For example, that might be the horoscope or whatever you believe in. How is that benefactory in any way? How do you not know that belief is wrong and that doesn't represent reality? Have you ever tried to put that into doubt? What if you're wrong? What if you're making a lot of decisions based on that, and because that's wrong, believe making wrong decisions. Your thoughts make you act. What if your thoughts are wrong? Have you ever questioned that? Or have you just reproduced what you have been hearing all your life? What makes people think that if the universe is based on laws, how would that also mean that free will exists? Isn't that something that cannot be together? How can we have free will if everything that moves the world is a bunch of laws? Why do some people think that even if everything else is mathematically and physically like studied, why do they think that the mind cannot? Why don't they think, okay, what if I just don't know about how to understand the mind, but maybe someone else can? Maybe it does have rules, but I just don't see them. Maybe it does have patterns, but I just don't see them. Like, so many people tend to overestimate their capabilities of understanding things. So, when they don't understand something, they assume that that cannot be understood by anyone. There is a problem with being too sure of ourselves, because when we think we can do something, we may be wrong. We cannot know because it hasn't happened yet. And when we think we cannot do something, we're also wrong, because maybe we're wrong because that hasn't happened yet, and maybe you won't even try that, and maybe you're able to do it. I have surprised myself so many times before. Well, I'm going to talk about the history of my beliefs. I don't have any today, but when I was a teenager, I had. I'm 26 years old, by the way. Well, my beliefs were, I believed in like that I could sense energies. If someone, well, what I referred to as energies back then was if someone was a good person or a bad person. First of all, I was wrong a lot of times. Like, most times when I was a teenager, I wasn't like that good in that regard. My intuition came on a lot better when I started analyzing it logically, because I built an intuition, which is not feeling energies, it's just having intuition that was based on logic, and that made me had a lot better results. And what is the difference between intuition and feeling energies is that intuition, it is based on logic. It is a fairly primitive logic, and it is kind of biased, especially when you're not questioning it and trying to make rules to logically use your intuition in a way that it is beneficial for you, instead of assumptions, which, I mean, assumptions a lot of the times are wrong. It is really good to understand that we may not know something and based our decision on statistics. But it is really important to understand that they are just statistics and they don't represent reality. Statistics don't represent reality. For example, if you have been cheated for 2 times, like you have been cheated on 2 times by 2 different people. This is not an example based on myself at all, by the way. Okay, let's just think about this. You may think that every person cheats. And you may have like this intuition that every guy or girl that you date is going to cheat on you. Well, is that statistically correct? No, it's not statistically correct. The only way you can find that out, and that you're kind of paranoid, it's okay to be careful. It's okay to take your time to trust someone. But it doesn't make sense to never trust anyone else, because that's statistically not correct. There are a lot of people who don't cheat. And the only way that you will find that out is if you doubt your intuition, which means your intuition is not always right, which means you will have better results if you question your intuition and you start analyzing it as something that can help you but is not perfect. Sometimes it is really flawed and it is not based on real logic. Sometimes things can seem logic, but they're not. And that's the art of logic. Like learning to notice fallacies. What are fallacies? Fallacies are thoughts that seem that they make sense and they are valid, but they are not. For example, everyone's going to cheat on me. That's not a valid thought. That is a valid thought. It's not valid logic, because that can be disproven. And 2 experiences does not represent reality or every person in the world at all. Like, you literally try to date 2 people out of like billions of people, and you think that represents reality. That's illogical. Let's think of religion. Well, I'm going to talk about the fallacies of religion. Oh my god, it's so cold, so hot. I'm going to turn on the air thing. No, I'm not. It will just make a ton of noise. I'm not. Well, I will finish this first. Well, the fallacies of religion. First fallacy. This is taken from a guy who I don't really know his name. He's the typical guy that talks about physics and science and stuff in a really accessible way for everyone. Like, not everyone, but yeah, kind of that's his intent for it to be like understandable to everyone, and not just people in like inside of the specific niche. So he said, with all the bad things that are happening on earth, God is either not all powerful or not all good. That is logic, for example. Another example. Actually, this comes from me. This specific one that's coming right now is an original thought. I think about this. Okay. The people who judge others are people who don't understand that person. Like, if somebody judges a person, that the person who judges doesn't understand the person that he or she is judging. They don't understand them. That's why they're judging them. So how can God judge anyone? If they understand them, they won't judge them. That is another error in logic when it comes to religion. Let's also think of okay, let's think of literally. Okay, this one is one that I love. This is from Nietzsche, however you want to call him. So he says that people who create something are people who are not comfortable inside. So they have the need to create something. If they're okay and in peace, they won't have the need to do anything. So why would God create anything if he was complete, okay, eternal, perfect? Okay. Another fallacy. Why would God give you the option to choose? And then, okay, why would God put you in a position where you have no choice but to do the wrong thing to survive? For example, someone that doesn't have any food for their kids because maybe her husband abandoned them or took everything from them, and she cannot give them food, and nobody's giving them food. Imagine that woman goes and steals a bunch of bananas for her kids. Is that a bad thing? Well, based on religion, it is. Based on my thoughts, it's not. Specifically, if that is stealing from a corporation or something. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying it's not a bad thing to steal. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are some gray areas. It's not black or white. It does depend on the context. And I think religion fails to see that sometimes and fails to validate that. So I think religion is based on judgment. And I don't know, I think people don't really choose to have really hard lives. That is something people who think people choose to have bad lives, people choose to not study, they're not seeing the variables of like people who never had food growing up. So their brains are not well developed enough for them to function well in society and have a job. So they cannot have food in any way. Why do we own their food? Why do they not have? Why would they not have the right to eat because they had bad luck in childhood? Because they cannot work? Do you think that that is something that they want to, that's a position they want to be in? They don't. They're just suffering all the time. So, would it be really that bad if they just try to eat something? Another thing is, what about capitalism? Do you think that capitalism is something that is based on Christianity? It's not. Love yourself how you like love other people how you love yourself. How does that correlate to Christianity? And literally the United States is one of the most Christian countries there one of the most Christian that there is. And they are one of the most capitalistic countries there are. And a lot of Christian people voted for Trump, which literally took away medical care from a lot of people. Don't you see how questioning beliefs and using logic is really the smartest thing to do? I'm not trying to make anyone stop being religious. I'm just trying to make you think for yourselves and evolve. Okay. Because I think it does have a lot of detrimental effects on society to have beliefs intellectually, morally, economically, in literally every way. It stunts progress. Okay? It makes people function in a less effective way than using logic. Because something has worked, or it seemed that it has worked for some time, doesn't mean that that is the most efficient way of functioning. Maybe there is a more efficient way of functioning because it's not black or white. There are grays. Okay? There are a lot of shades of gray, and we can always improve our logic and our way of functioning with everyone else, with society, between each other, you know? And the only way we can do that is by questioning what we are doing, how we think. Instead of just reproducing what has already been happening all the time. Okay.